All right. Good evening, and welcome to the post-Chasna edition of the Daf Yomi and the Rabbi Loiterman birthday edition. Thank you so much for the healthy treat. All right, as you say, put fruit on anything and it becomes healthy. Baruch atah
Amen.
All right, tasty too.
All right.
It's the fruit that's tasty, not the cake.
The fruit that has a kick. We have sponsorships. Sponsored this evening by Rabbi Aaron Koslasi, Jeff Wald, Yehuda Greenwood, Moshe Greenbaum, and Josh Bernstein in honor of my birthday, Rabbi Loiterman's birthday. We appreciate all the time and energy you put into this amazing shiur. Bis 120 Jahr. Very nice. Thank you so much.
Happy birthday.
Tuesday's Daf is also sponsored by Ryan and Talia Bernkopf. Lili Nishmas, Talia's father. Beinish Ben Eliyahu, whose your site is tonight, tomorrow, 20th of Mar Cheshvan. May his neshama have an aliyah. Good, and we'll remember that when I see Tali tomorrow at the Parsha Shiur. She becomes a regular attendee of the Parsha Shiur, and we also should mention that there. So good. We are starting our new parak, Daf Nun Ches Samad Aleph, very top of the page. Kodshei Kodshim Sheshachtem Berosh HaMizbeach. This was happened to be the daf when we're a little bit behind, right? But we're catching our way up, right? Today is Samech Hey, I think it is. So we're on our way catching back up. It happens to be that on the day that this daf was, one Dr. Moshe Greenbaum came over to me and said, how is it that they were trying to shecht Yitzchak on the Akedah, right? On the Akedah, right? I remember this question. And then a couple of days later, I read this Gemara. If you Taste 66? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
because the question was, how can it shecht him on the Mizbeach? Supposed to be beside the Mizbeach.
Correct. That was exactly it. On the north side.
Yeah.
This Gemara, this Mishnah says, if you have Kodshei Kodshim that are slaughtered on the top of the Mizbeach, Rabbi Yossi Omer Ki'ilu Nishchatu B'Tzafon, it's as though it's done in the north. Okay?
Wow.
However, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says, Mechetzi HaMizbeach V'Ladorom Kedorom Mechetzi HaMizbeach L'Tzafon Ketzafon. Depends which half of the Mizbeach. There's a north half of the Mizbeach and a south half of the Mizbeach. So if you're on the north half of the Mizbeach, that's north. If you're on the south half of the Mizbeach, that's south. Now, for the sake of illustration purposes, bear with me, this is not to scale. However, imagine here's our Beis HaMikdash. This line represents the north-south of the Azara. This will be our Mizbeach. It's not square. If it was the Mizbeach, it would need to be square. Very critical that the Mizbeach is square. We will learn that later on. But we're going to be using this because we're going to slide our Mizbeach north and south, trying to figure out where in the Azara this Mizbeach was. Okay? So now, that's where we're going to start. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Asi, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Asi, Rabbi Yochanan, Omer Haya Rabbi Yossi, Kule Mizbeach B'Tzafon Kai. The entire Mizbeach, right? Rabbi Yochanan says that Rabbi Yossi said that the entire Mizbeach was in the north, right? So here's our Mizbeach. There was a ramp that went off of it, but the entire Mizbeach is on the north side. So therefore, that's why he says in the Mishnah, he holds in the Mishnah that if you shecht on top of the Mizbeach, it's as though you're in the north, because you were, right? The entire Mizbeach is in the north. Ki'ilu, so my Ki'ilu, so then if that's the case, what does that mean? It's as if, it's in the Mishnah, Ki'ilu you were slaughtered in the north, you did slaughter it in the north. So, Ma'u Detema, would you have thought, Bo'in al Yerech Veleka? Because the Pasuk says it has to be on the side of the Mizbeach to the north, and this isn't on the side of the Mizbeach, even though it's the north, Kamash Malon, so therefore this Mishnah is telling us, nope, it's the same thing. Al Yerech Mizbeach just means that it has to be done on this, can be done on the side, the north side of the Mizbeach, but not that it literally has to be done on the floor, on the side. Right, it's pretty good, right? It's good.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I'm surprised. It looked too healthy. You were nervous.
That's fruit.
That's correct. You're a little bit nervous. Correct.
What if the whole Mizbeach is in the north, and
yes.
How come if you shecht it on the south side of the Mizbeach?
Oh, that is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Different opinion, right? There's Rabbi Yossi, and there's Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. There's also Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Just don't get them all confused. This Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi Bar Chalafta, right? And then there's Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. So the first Rabbi Yossi holds that the entire thing is in the north. Amar le Rabbi Zera l'Ravasi. Rabbi Zera says Ravasi. Elameato. If that's true, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Now let's take a look at the second opinion. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Hachinami dechetzi b'tzafim dechetzi b'darom. So then then what you're suggesting is that according to Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, he holds the Mizbeach is right there, halfway. Therefore, half north, half south. Hey, and that sounds like a great answer. Before you answer, hey, that's true. You are the one who said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Modi Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda agrees Shimshachton Kenegdon Bekarka Psula, that if the Mizbeach were not there and you slaughtered on the ground where the Mizbeach would be, then the Korban would be puzzle. So that seems to imply that Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda would hold the Mizbeach is there. Because if you took this Mizbeach away and you shechted it on the floor right there, that would be at the south side. So how could you? It's not a matter we want. It's just maybe the machlok is just where the Mizbeach is. The Mizbeach is here. You can shecht on all of it. The Mizbeach is here. You can shecht on half of it, and that's not the case. It sounds like
because you need a Mizbeach to do a carbon, right? If there's no Mizbeach.
Very good. Okay, right? So Amar le Hakikam this means. Rabbi Yochanan says, Shnehem mikra echad darshu. Both of them are learning it from one pasuk. Pasuk says, V'zavachta alav es olosecha v'es shlamecha. Right, you're going to be able to slaughter upon it your korban shlamim and your olos. Now, we had this sort of a thing before where somebody had a tmura and he said this tmura is going to be an ola and a shlamim. And we said, well, are you going to be, or this animal is going to be a tmura for this one and tmura for that one? What happens? We had an argument, does the entire animal become an ola? Are you trying to say the entire thing is an ola and the entire thing is a shlamim? Or are you trying to say half of it's an ola, half of it is a shlamim? What are you trying to say? So Rabbi Yossi says, Kula li ola v'kula li shlamim. The pasuk means to say, this Mizbeach is entirely able to be used as an ola for olos or for shlamim. Now an ola is kache kachim. Shlamim is kache kalim. We said kache kachim, the holiest items have to be shechted in the north. The kache kalim can be shechted anywhere. So this is telling me on this mizbeach, I can do any korban that I want on the top of it. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda savar, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says no. Chetzio liola v'chetzio l'shlamim. By the pasuk telling me that this mizbeach is for olos and shlamim, it means half of it is for olos, half of it is for shlamim. The half that's for olos, that's the north half, because it has to be done in the north. The half for shlamim is the other part. Because if you thought the entire mizbeach would be good to slaughter a ola on it, hashta kula liola kosher kula l'shlamim mibai. What would be the point of the pasuk saying that? All you'd have to say is the entire thing is good for an ola. And then wherever you can shecht the kache kachim, for sure you can shecht the kache kalim. There's a kal v'chomer there, right? As we said, you can shecht the kache kalim anywhere in the Azara. Kache kachim had to be done on the north side. So, for sure, if you can shecht it, if you can shecht an ola there, for sure you can shecht the shlamim there. Ve'idach, the other one will say, no, it's tzrich. I need to be able to say that I can use this mizbeach for both. Why? Salka daitach, I would have thought to have said, holahu dedachik le'makom. The ola can be done on the mizbeach. Why? Because the Torah is telling us, you only have half of the azara to be able to do a korban ola. So therefore, it's possible that when there's a lot of olos, you're going to run out of space. So maybe that's why you can do it on the mizbeach, but that's not a good place to do korbanos. When you've got a shlamim and you can do it anywhere, do it someplace else. So therefore, aval shlamim de lo dachik le'makom, you're not pressed for space for shlamim. You got the entire azara to do. So therefore, emalo, I might think you can't do it on the mizbeach. Kamash malan. Therefore, the pasuk is telling us, no, you can do shlamims up there, you can do olos up there. And so that's the point of their dispute, right? It has nothing to do with where you place this mizbeach. Although, keep in mind that Rabbi Yochanan does in fact say that Rabbi Yossi holds the entire mizbeach is in the north. So Gufa, let's go back to that statement. Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Asi and Rabbi Yochanan, Modi Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda agrees, Shim Shachton Kenegdon Bekarka Psulos. If you didn't have the mizbeach there, if you slaughtered in that location on the ground, the korban would be puzzle. Amar Rav Achami Difti says, L'Ravina, my Kenegdon Bekarka, what does he mean by in its location, opposite its location on the ground? So, ilema ama yesod ama sovev. If he means, maybe what you're saying is not on the top of the mizbeach. Let's say you try to do the shchita. Maybe this pasuk is telling me that you could do shchita on the top of the mizbeach, but you also have that ledge, right? And then you have the base. So maybe you can't do shchita on the ledge or the base because that's not the ground and it's not the mizbeach. So the answer is no, of course not. Hai gufehu, that's hai gufe mizbeachu. That's part of the mizbeach. So therefore, if you can shecht on the mizbeach, for sure you can shecht on the ledge or on the base. That's not it. Ve'od, and furthermore, my kenegdon bekarka. How are you going to interpret the phrase which literally says opposite it on the ground? That's not the ground. So maybe what it means is that they made caves under the ground and they went underneath the mizbeach and they did shchita there. You can't have a mizbeach like that. The mizbeach can't be placed over caves. We learned in a brisa, mizbeach adama taseli. You have to make a earthen mizbeach for me. Which means that the mizbeach has to be directly attached to the ground. Shelo yibanenu lo al gabi mechilos v'lo al gabi kipin. You cannot build this mizbeach on caves or on domes under structures. You can't have structures underneath the mizbeach. It's got to be literally onto the ground. Now, if you go to those, we think we've talked about this before, right? You go there, the entire area underneath the azara does have caves and things, but that one space potentially does not. So, lo tzricha de batzrei bitsuri. The answer is, what we mean is that if you made a mizbeach that was smaller than 32 by 32, and you had ground in that space, that would not be an appropriate space to do shchita, because that space would not be in the north. We are going to learn, I don't want to give away the spoilers, but we are going to learn the mizbeach is 32 by 32, but the mizbeach does not have to be 32 by 32. The mizbeach can be a smaller size. It can be up to as large as, we'll see, 60 by 60, but it has a maximum amount, it has a minimum amount, but the mizbeach can be of flexible size. So,
and the mikdash was not the same size
correct.
in the Mishkan, right?
That's correct. As we will yes. Let's say yes for now.
Okay.
Let's say yes for now.
I'm getting it again. I hate spoilers. Don't spoil it for me.
Amar Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera says, Efshar Isa Laha Rabbi Yochanan Velo Tanina Lo B'Masnisin. Okay, back to this statement that Rabbi Yossi said, that according to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yossi said that the entire Mizbeach is in the north. How could Rabbi Yochanan make that statement and not have found that in the Mishnah someplace? He's just pulling that out of thin air. Obviously, there's some source for that statement. So Nafik Dak Ve'ashkach. So he went through all the Mishnayos, as one is wont to do when you're, right? They didn't have Google back then, so they had to look it through, right? And he found something. He found, here's probably the source. Ditznan. We learned in a Mishnah. Bira ru misham atze te'ena yofim l'seder ma'aracha shnia shel. So let's take a look at our Mizbeach for a moment here, right? We've got our Mizbeach, and our Mizbeach has on top of it a fire here, a fire here. It's got the main fire here, and then potentially another fire here. Okay, depending on, we'll see. This is going to be this fire is going to be the eternal flame, stays always burnt, right? This is going to be a fire. We're going to build this in order to be able to use it for the Ketores. We're going to build this fire, and they're going to take a scoop from it and bring it to the Ketores. We're going to see that this fire is closest to the entrance of the Mizbeach. Therefore, you go shortest route, always shortest route, right? This is going to be the main one. That's where we're going to burn all the limbs of all of the korbanos, and then this is the one where they would, I guess, scoop up for the wood in order to create the fire. I guess they would feed the fire from it. So they had all of these different fires on the top of the Mizbeach. Okay? So now, says the Mishnah, Biraru misham atze te'ena yafim l'seder ma'aracha shnia shel ketoris. They would select some fine fig wood in order to be able to use from fig trees to build this fire, which was used for the Ketores. Keneged Keren Ma'aravis Dromis. It was on the southwest side of the Mizbeach. Mashoch min Keren Kapi Tzafon Arba Amos. It was 4 amos away from the edge of the Mizbeach. 4 amos away. So be'omed chamesh so'in gecholim. It was the amount of wood that they used was the amount that they needed to make 5 se'ah worth of coals. Ubeshabes, be'omed shmona so'in gecholim. They were on Shabbos. They would make it slightly larger because they would need 8 se'ah. Why? Shesham hayu nostin shnei bazichi levona shel lechem hapanim. Because the lechem hapanim, showbread, had all of the bread lined up, stacked 6 on one set of shelves, 6 on the other set of shelves. Underneath, they would take a spoon of frankincense lay it on the table underneath them. On Shabbos, they would take that spoon, take it out to the Mizbeach, and burn it on that flame. So since there's extra stuff that you got to do with this flame, you got to make it a little bit larger. So on Shabbos, they built the flame up a little bit more for that reason. Now, Umay Simana, Rabbi Yosihi, how do you know that this, first of all, we're going to say this Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi's opinion. How do you know that? Tanya, we learn it in a Brisa. Brisa says, Chamesh, Rabbi Yossi says, Zeh Siman, this is the rule. This is the rule for you to remember. If you want a nice mnemonic device to remember something, a rule of the Mizbeach, here you go. Kol hanital bifnim linotein bachutz, anything that's taken from inside the Beis HaMikdash, in order for it to be brought outside, eino niton elo besamuch. That has to be taken from something which is close by the entrance, close by to each other. She'ein lifnim, because the Mizbeach, besamuch she'ein lifnim. You have to put it on the closest area which is not inside. V'chol nito bachutz, and anything which is taken from the outside, linotin lifnim, to bring into the Beis HaMikdash, eino nito el besamuch she'ein lifnim. You have to take it from the nearest place which is not on the inside. So whatever you're taking some object going from inside the Beis HaMikdash to outside, and you're going to the nearby space, and you're taking something from a nearby space on the outside, bringing it to the inside. So what are we talking about? What's this thing that you're taking from inside the Beis HaMikdash and bringing outside? My nihu, what is that? Well, we know one thing that we did. Remember, we had the leftover blood of those offerings that were in the Mizbeach, that were in the Heichal. So you would take the extra blood and you would go outside, and that would fit, right? That you would pour, we were told, where do you pour it? The closest location on the Mizbeach, right when you get to that hole that's right outside the door. The only problem is, I don't need a Mishnah to tell me that. Behed ya ksiv behu, right? That's written right in the Pasuk. Al yesod mizbach ha'olah asher pesach oel moed. Rabbi Yossi wouldn't need to tell me that. I'd have a pasuk written right in the Torah. It says I'm supposed to take it outside, put it right into the base, which is right opposite the door of the Oel Moed. The two, and furthermore, what are we going to say is the item which is outside, which is being brought inside? Maybe, right? It's parallel. It's going to be the coals. You're going to take a scoop of coals from here, and you're going to take those coals with a shovel on Yom Kippur, and you're going to take a scoop full of incense, and you go into the Kodesh Kodashim with it, and you burn the incense in the Kodesh Kodashim. So that's an example of something that's brought from the outside to the inside. So that's also behed yiksiv behu. That's also written right in a pasuk. You're going to take the shovel full of coals and then you're going to bring it inside. So there's no chidushim there. So Rabbi Yossi doesn't need to tell me that. Ella, so rather like this. This is what Rabbi Yossi's talking about. Kol anitel b'fnim linotim b'chutz. What is the thing that's inside that you have to take outside? Shnei bazichim levona. It's the 2 spoons of frankincense that are on the shulchan. You're taking it from the inside of the Beis HaMikdash, walking out the door, and you got to go shnei bazim shalvona shalechem apanim. De gomri mishirayim. We're going to learn a connection over to this leftover blood. Hanitel b'chutz. So therefore, just like the blood that's poured in the closest location, the fire that you're going to burn this bazichin, these two spoons, that's going to be the fire that's closest to the entrance of the Oel Moed. So you're going to burn it right on that fire. That's the closest one. Hanito b'chutz linotin b'fnim. What is the thing that's taken from the outside to be brought inside? That's gecholim dechol yoma. That's the everyday coals. So you're going to need these coals every day to burn ketoras, right? So where are you getting the coals that you're going to burn ketoras from? This fire, the one that's closest. If you're going into the Beis HaMikdash, you're coming from the Beis HaMikdash. This is the fire to go to. Okay, that's Rabbi Yossi's point.
Because this Mizbeach is really in the north. That's the whole point of all this?
We didn't get there yet. We'll talk about why it's in the north. Right? Now, okay?
Because otherwise, this is just as close.
So hang on.
Yeah.
Right? Now, so because we're going to learn that it's going to be the same thing as the coals from the fire that's brought in Yom Kippur. Umayka Savar. Now, what is he holding? Let's figure this out. We're getting to this corner here where I put my dot before, right? This is my back corner, okay? So what is he holding here? If he holds the entire Mizbeach is in the south, so Kai. So then Esrim so the question is, we know we're getting to this fire. Where was this fire? This fire is 4 amos away from the southwest corner. Why'd you put it there? That's not the closest location, right? You have a distance of Esrim Vesheva by Lemesi. You have 27 amos between here and here. How do you get 27 amos? So, right? Got my pictures. I should have blown these up, right? Blown these up. This is a good description, right? You're gonna have your doorway. Let's just draw it on my diagram, right? This doorway is 10 amos wide. So therefore, this is gonna be 5. This is gonna be 5. This doorway is 10 amos on this side and 10 amos on this side. It's 20 wide. Okay? So this is your distance. Okay? So if you walk out the middle of the door here, right? And you go from this area all the way to the end, you've got 10 amos from this middle. You got 10 amos from the middle to here. And then, right, since this Mizbeach is 32 amos, you've got another 22 amos to go from here to the end. So therefore, that means that you have a full, if you're going to start from here at 5, right? So then you're going to have 5 plus the 20, 5 plus the, well, you're going to be basically coming out closer here. So it's 32 minus 5, right? Because you're coming out from the edge. So you're going to start from the edge. It's 32 minus 5. 32 minus 5, that's your 27 amos. So you still have a 27 amo walk to get there. Not counting going around and up the ramp, right? But at least where the closest location is, it's 27 amos away. It's not the right place to put the fire, is the bottom line. Okay?
You could go straight there.
It would be the closest,
Diagonal, it would be
right?
close.
So why not put it up here? That's the point. Put it up here. You'd have to walk there, right? Correct. But Doc's question is good. Why not use this fire? It's really closer. That's where they're suggesting it should be put. Instead, we're putting it here. Why are we putting it here? Put it up here, right? So that's number 1. Where else can we put it? Let's keep going. We'll keep trying to move this Mizbeach around. Maybe you hold that the Kedusha in the Ulam, this front area, has the same Kedusha of the Heichal. So therefore, you're going to walk out the door, and you can walk out right on the edge here. So you're already further, you're a little bit closer, right? So you're still Esrim Vitarti boy. You're still 20. You're 32 minus 10 now. You're still 22 amos away from the end of the Mizbeach. Fine. Now let's take the Mizbeach. Let's move it half and half. Okay? So now, from the middle of the Mizbeach to the corner is going to be 16 amos. So you still have Chatzrei Boy Lemese. If you start here, 16 minus 5 is 11 amos. You're still 11 amos away from the corner. Ve'ela, kasavar kedushas heichal ve'ulam chada milsehi. Even if you're going to hold that the kedusha is going to be the kedusha from the ulam is going to also be the same kedusha, so you'll have 16 minus 10. You'll still be 6 shis boy lemesi. You still got 6 amos walk to take. Why not put it right there? Why are you putting it onto the edge? So therefore, it must be the mizbeach is all the way in the north, right? And therefore, that's why you put it in the corner here. So the honey arba. So why don't you put it right in the corner? Why'd you move it 4 amos away from the corner? The honey arba amos. Where did the 4 amos come from? Remember, we've got amma yisod. You can't put it on the ground, right? So it can't be the base, the amma of the base. V'amma sovev, and the amma of the ledge. V'amma makom kronos. Then you need an amma for where the corner of the horns are, right? V'amma makom raglei konim. You need an amma for the coin and walk around there. So therefore, the closest place to the corner that you could fit it is 4 amos away.
So really, it is just 1 amma away from the corner.
That's correct.
Okay.
1 amma away from this corner. Okay. If you're really going from the corner, remember you've got Pythagorean's theorem, and so you're going to be 1 times the square root of 2, right? Because I get mathematical on us, right? But right, if you've got right, this what I mean to say is this is the corner, right? So this is going to be 1 amma here, right, and 1 amma here. So then this diagonal is going to be 1 squared plus 1 squared, which is square root of 2. Right, so it's the square root of 2, which is 1.214. What is it? 1.14 whatever. The point is that the reason I don't have to worry about that is because that Chazal told us to use 1 2/5. That's going to be a 1 2/5 because remember, they don't use decimals. Whenever you're going to be doing calculations, in Torah, in Gemara, you're always going to use fractions. I hope you like them because they're Rashi, everybody uses only fractions. Nobody uses decimals. Makes math complicated, but
other math is this
for this case,
complicated
1 2/5 is your hypotenuse. And I'm telling you that because it's foreshadowing for a daf later on. Okay, so we have to know that. 1 2/5. Anyway, now, that's his idea. So therefore, that's how come the Mizbech must be in the north, because he says that the fire that they're taking from is from the closest area, and that fire is right on that southwest corner. Fine. To Leka Pesach, and if you were moving this away, right, it would not be opposite the doorway. So that's your best answer. Amar Rava bar Ava. So Rav Ada bar Ava says, I have a better explanation of the Mishnah. Hamani Rabbi Yehudahi. Maybe this brisa is not Rabbi Yossi at all. Maybe it's a different opinion. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe this is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Tanya, we learn a brisa. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says, Mizbeach memutza ve'omed be'emtza ha'azara. The Mizbeach is halfway. The location of the Mizbeach is right in the middle. That's where you put it. Ushloshim ushtayim amos hayulo. And it was 32 amos, squared, as we said. Eser amos keneged pischo shel heichal. 10 of the amos were opposite the opening of the Beis HaMikdash. Achad esrei amos mikan ve'achad esrei amos mikan, which means that you had 11 amos on either direction. Nimtza mizbeach mechuvan keneged heichal. That shows you that the mizbeach is exactly centered opposite the opening of the heichal. Not like in this picture. This picture is not Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, right? It's not Rabbi Yossi's opinion either, right? Neither of those opinions, right? This one is intentionally vague. You can't really see where it is exactly, but right, it's not that. So therefore, okay. At the end of the day, if this was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, chadsrei boy lemesei, you still, if you walk out of the door, you got 11 amos to walk. You've got 11 amos to walk, right? So and even if you're going to say that he's walking out this door and this ulam is the same kedusha, so he walks out of this door, so he's already 10 amos. He's 10 amos further. Remember, he says from the midpoint is 16, so you're already 10 amos along. You still have 6 amos to go. Shis boy lemese, you'd have 6 more to go. Misavart hani arba bahadi ama yisod v'amasovev. Maybe what's going on here is when he says it's 4 amos away from the edge, maybe he's not counting the 2 amos of the base and the amma of the base and the amma of the ledge. Maybe he's saying it's 4 amos from the side of the mizbeach, and therefore, it's 4 amos besides the base and besides the ledge. 4 plus 1 plus 1 means it's 6 away from the ledge, which is exactly perfect. That's where we want it to be, 6 amos away. So therefore, that could be another explanation for this Mishnah. So this Mishnah doesn't necessarily prove Rabbi Yochanan's point. Okay, v'nokma karebi Yossi ubemamutza. So why don't we then say, okay, then how is it that we are going to, why don't we suggest that Rabbi Yossi, it could be Rabbi Yossi's opinion, and Rabbi Yossi holds that it's in the middle, right? Why does it have to be Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? So Mishum de Rabbi Yehuda Shmana la memutza behedja. The only reason why we're saying that is because we know Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's in the middle. That's what we know. So therefore, it makes good sense to explain it that way. Rav Shravya Amar Rav Shravya says, I'll tell you who this Mishnah is. Hamani Rabbi Yossi Haglili. This is not Rabbi Yossi Bar Chalaf. This is Rabbi Yossi Haglili, right? To make sure you don't mess up. There's 3 Rabbi Yossis. Arguing where the Mizbeach is, exactly. Detanya, we learned in our brisa. Rabbi Yossi Haglili, Rabbi Yossi Haglili says, "Mitok shenamar." And the pasuk says, "V'nasatas hakior bein ohel moed." Where are we going to put our kior? So remember our washing basin, right? So here's a picture of our Mizbeach, right? There are going to be 2 tables here which we haven't discussed. Here's our washing basin. Remember, we had this mechanism with the wheel, right? This is their depiction thereof, and this is our washing basin that they're washing with. So the question is, where is this washing basin? Where's it supposed to be? So you can see, here's where they put it over here on the side, right? Let's see let's see where they say it, where it goes. Okay, so Here's our Mizbeach. We're going to need to put our Mizbeach somewhere between, we're going to need to put our Kior somewhere between, the Pasuk says, between the Ol Moed and the Mizbeach. Okay, that's where it has to go. The Gomer. The S, then we learn also, the S, Mizbeach HaOla, right? The Pasuk says also the Ola, the Pasuk says that the Mizbeach for the Ola, the outside Mizbeach for Korbanos, right, was, you put it, the Pasuk says, Sam Pesach Mishkan Ol Moed. You're supposed to put it next to the opening, opposite the opening of the Ol Moed. Okay, so that's what we know. So, Mizbeach bePesach Ol Moed, velo Kior bePesach Ol Moed. That means the Mizbeach is open, it faces the opening doors, not the Kior. So, that means we've got two things we have to worry about here. We need to put the Kior somewhere between the Mizbeach and the Beis HaMikdash, and it can't be interfering between the open doorways. Okay? So, this area here, opposite the doors, we don't want it. But we want it somewhere over here, so that it's between the Mizbeach and the Heichal. So, Mizbeach, Heichon hayanosno, so therefore, where was it put? Bein ha'ulam v'la Mizbeach, between the ulam and the Mizbeach, Moshoch kima klape dorm, towards the south side. Okay, that's what he's saying, towards the south side. So, my kasavar. So now let's figure out what's going on here. What is Rabbi Yosef legally holding? Ikasavar kula Mizbeach bedorom kai. Maybe the entire Mizbeach is on the south. Okay, let's put it right there on the south. So then, nukmei koso heichol v'ladorom bein ulam lemizbeach. So then, what we have here is that you don't need. Why do you have to put the kior a little bit to the south of the wall of the Mizbeach? Because you have all this space, which is opposite between the Mizbeach and the Ulam. It could go in right in the right place. Meaning, right, if you take a look at some diagrams here that we have here, right, this diagram shows, if this is where you're putting the Mizbeach all the way in the south, then you could put the kior and not interfere with the opening of the Heichal, and still have it plenty of space between the Mizbeach. You don't have to put it to the south of the Mizbeach, right? Like we saw in the picture, right? Do we have that? Where's our Mizbeach picture again? Right? Here, in our Mizbeach picture, they put it to the south of the Mizbeach. Why does it have to be there? Why can't it be here? Which is between, like that helps, that's better. The answer is, for some reason, this can't be there. So let's try to figure out why. So, even if you're going to say you can't put it opposite this entrance here because the entrance of the ulam is equivalent to the kedusha of the heichal, so fine. You still have all this space. This is still 22 amos of space. You could put the kior there. So why not? Then, V'ika savar. So now Ika savar chetzio b'tzav v'chetzio b'darom. Maybe you hold that it's half and half in the north, half in the south. Nuk me kosel heichal v'ladorom bein ulam mizbeach. You still can have room to put it between the mizbeach and the ulam because if you split it halfway, you get this picture, right? You still have plenty of space. This one is drawn to scale, right? My drawing is not to scale, but this is to scale. You still have plenty of space to put it so that it's between the wall of the Mizbeach and the Beis HaMikdash. And even if you are of the opinion, even if you're going to say that even this wider opening, right, that's going to be the next point, you still have enough space to put it between, right? You're still going to have enough space, like this picture, to put the kior to the side of the big entrance, and it'll still be between the Mizbeach and the opening. Why does the kior, why is Rabbi Yosef Galili saying that you have to put the kior to the south of the Mizbeach? Nuk mekosa ulam v'ladorom bein ulam mekosa ulam v'ladorom Mizbeach. So you still, even if you're going to say, v'inami, I skipped the line. Bein inami kosavar chetzio b'tzav chetzio. If you're going to put it halfway, noch mekosa behechol v'ladorom. You could still put it between the wall of the Mizbeach and the wall of the Heichal, you could still put it to the south of that. Bein ulam mizbeach, between the ulam and the mizbeach. And ikasavar kedushas ha'ulam behecho chadi. If you're going to hold that you can't put it opposite the opening of the ulam either, you still nukmei kosel ulam v'ladoram bein ulam mizbeach. You still have enough space to put it opposite between the wall of the ulam and the wall of the mizbeach. Ella lav mishum dekasavar kuli mizbeach but tzafon must be the mizbeach is here in the north. Therefore, since it's in the north, there's no space to be able to put it opposite between the wall and the mizbeach. Once you get to the south, once you get to this part of the mizbeach, you got to move it over a little bit to get it out of the way of the door. Okay, so that's why. Now, still, nukme ben heichav l'tzafon. If you're putting the mizbeach on this side, just put the kiyur on this side. Why do you have to put it on the south side? Put it on the north side. So the answer is there's a separate problem. Even if you're going to tell me that that you have to worry about the bigger door, you still have space. Kinami mukmas, because you still got space between the wall and the mizbeach here, right? You can still put it over here. Well, the answer is you got a separate problem, right? You still have because so the answer is bein ulam ve'lam is. What did I skip? I think I just read a line wrong. So that you're going to have it between the ulam and the mizbeach. So let's put it from the wall of the ulam to the north. And keep it between the ulam and the mizbeach, just like the pasuk wants. So the answer is, the reason why you can't do that is because Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Tzafona, it has to be on the north side. Sheyehei tzafon panoi mikelim. Tzafona, right, where the full pasuk is v'shachat. Oh, there you go. Tzafona. Shachat also al yerach mizbeach tzafona. You're going to shacht the korban on the side of the mizbeach to the tzafon. Tzafona means clear. The word tzafon, right? Tzafon means north, right? But pei nun hey means open and clear, which means the north side of the Azara has to be open and clear. You can't put any kalim in the north side. So therefore, you're right. If you put the mizbeach in the north, it would be nice to be able to put the kior here because it's between the mizbeach and the ulam. But for technical reasons, you can't put it there either. Therefore, you've got Rabbi Yosef Glili's answer that because the mizbeach has to be in the north, you've got to move the kior all the way to the south, offset, right? It's not going to be next to, it's going to look like this, right? So this is going to be all the opinions. This opinion must be holding the mizbeach is sorted to the north.
Didn't you say that Rabbi Yossi, the first Rabbi Yossi said that it's in the north?
So that's what we said was the first Rabbi Yossi. Yeah. So now we're still questioning, how does this Mishnah prove that how do we prove that Rabbi Yossi, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, because it says this, there's an opinion that holds this mizbeach in the north. So say it's not Rabbi Yossi.
We're talking about Rabbi Yossi Glili now.
This is Rabbi Yossi Glili. Could be it's Rabbi Yossi Aglili. That's correct. So maybe we don't have a proof that Rabbi Yossi held it in the north. We have a proof that Rabbi Yossi Aglili holds it in the north, and then therefore it could be Rabbi Yossi Aglili who's the one who tells us that the mizbeach is in the north in the other, right, in the other brisa. So therefore, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, and so now we have another position. So Mantana de Poligali Rabbi Yossi Aglili. By the way, who is the one who argues with Rabbi Yossi Aglili and says that the entire mizbeach was not in the north? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The Tanya we learn a brayso. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, "Tzafona sheyeh tzafon ponim miklum." The north means can't have anything there. Vafilu mizbeach, even the mizbeach can't be there. So that's why the mizbeach has to be in the south. So therefore, that's that opinion. Now, that means that we've got three shitos. We've got Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who holds the entire thing is in the south. Rabbi Yehuda, who holds it's exactly in the middle, and Rabbi Yosef Glili, who holds it's in the north. But we don't have a proof. We never really found a proof where Rabbi Yochanan gets his rule that Rabbi Yossi Bar Chalafta holds that it's in the north. We just have that statement. He holds that way, right?
So Rabbi Yossi Glili and Rabbi Yossi Bar Chalafta are in agreement.
In agreement. That's what we're going to presume, right? But we couldn't find a Mishnah that proved Rabbi Yossi says that way. Okay.
Until now, even nowadays, we still have no proof.
We left it that way.
Then, no, we definitely don't know.
That's correct. Okay. Amar Rav. Rav says mizbeach shenifgam kol hakachim shenishchatu sham psulim. If you've got a mizbeach that's broken, You can't anything that you shecht in that whole area is in the Azara is puzzle. Right. So we learned, right, that we had a whole procedure of building on how to build. We had building the mizbeach lessons last week, right? They built a wood frame, 32 by 32. They poured the base, then they came back and they poured the next layer, and then they poured the next layer, a little bit smaller each and every time, and eventually, so they poured it as almost like a cement, right? They filled it with rocks and they filled it in the spaces. So that's how they build it. So if it's broken and you can't fix it, right? You can't just patch it up. Right? Because it has to be whole. Once it's broken, you got to take the whole thing down and rebuild it from scratch.
Time for a new mizbeach.
Mikra haya biyadenu ve'ushchach nuhu. But we had a pasuk that told us that, but we forgot. We don't know which pasuk tells us that. Kisolik Rav Kahana. So Rav Kahana left. Right? He left to Eretz Yisrael. Right? Normally, you have everybody coming here from Eretz Yisrael. Rav Kahana went to Eretz Yisrael. Ashkechei Rabbi Shimon. So he found Rabbi Shimon Berebi. De Ka'amar Mishum Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. He said in the name of Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. Minayin Mizbeach Shenifgam Shekol Kodshim Shenish Chutam Psulin. How do I know that if the Mizbeach is broken, that all the kachim that you try to put on it are puzzle? Shenemar, because the pasuk says, "V'zavachta olav es olosecha ve'es shlamecha." You should sacrifice on it all of your burnt offerings and all of your peace offerings. V'chi alav atazovech. You don't shecht your korbanos ideally on the mizbeach. Ella, so the pasuk means keshu shalem v'lo keshu chaser. You should shecht your korbanos when you have a complete mizbeach. That's what the pasuk means. Amar, he said, Hainu kra dishtamit le lirav Rabbi Yochanan. He says that's the pasuk they forgot. That was it. You figured it out. That's the answer. Okay, sorry. That's mishtamit le lirav. That's what the pasuk the Rav thought. Rabbi Yochanan says echad zeh vechad zeh psulin. He says this one and this one is puzzle. So what does that mean? That means that he's talking about both the kodshim that were shechted while the mizbeach is no good. Also, the ones that were not shechted until after the mizbeach was fixed. Meaning, if somebody sanctified an animal and then the mizbeach became broken and then they fixed it, even if you slaughter it then, they're still no good. Once the mizbeach was broken at any time, all korbanos that were designated are now nullified, no good. B'mai pligi, what's their argument about? Rav Sover, it's the old argument we had once before, Bali Chaim Einon Nidchim, that a live animal is not considered pushed away, right? It's alive. There's nothing wrong with it. So wait, fix the mizbeach, bring your animal tomorrow. Mizbeach gets a little sign on the door, out of order, come back tomorrow, and then they come back tomorrow and you shecht it and you're good.
This room's under maintenance.
Under maintenance, right? Rabbi Yochanan says, Bali Chaim Nidchin, a live animal, even if it's right, still gets pushed off.
But what if you're like 100 miles from the mizbeach and you don't realize that it's broken?
It sounds like anything once it's designated, since you cannot bring it as a korban today because there's no mizbeach, it is now right whole v'nidcha yidcha. As he said, once at one point this animal cannot be brought because there's no mizbeach, it can never be brought.
Or to the drone to check.
Okay. So ask the following question. Kol ha'kodshim shahayu ad shelo nivne hamizbeach. If you had kodshim that were around before they built the mizbeach. Okay, so let's say there's no mizbeach, and somebody sanctifies korbanos. V'achar kach nivne hamizbeach. Now, this is talking about during the times of between the first base of Mikdash and the second base of Mikdash. So, if you were between the first base of Mikdash and the second base of Mikdash, you sanctified an animal, and then they built the base of Mikdash, and now you've got a mizbeach. So, psulin, those animals are puzzle, because they were sanctified when there was no mizbeach. Nivne, so
How do you sanctify when there's no mizbeach?
you just say, I hereby declare this animal to be kosher, ekdesh.
Does that mean it's not hektish or it's puzzle?
It means it's puzzle.
But it is hektish?
Yes.
Oh.
So you have to be careful nowadays, right? You can declare something to be hektish, and now you're stuck. You got to hold on to it.
So you can donate your computer to the...
As long as
I don't know whatever they'll do with it,
you
right?
don't put as long as you put your hand on the book, you put your hand up.
Right. Fine. Nivna. So now, The Gemara asks, one second, we said that the Mizbeach is built. That's different because those, when they sanctified it, you know why they're puzzle? Because they were sanctified and there was no Mizbeach, right? So immediately they were no good, right? But these are different because there was a moment where they were good. They sanctified it and they were good, and then it got ruined, so maybe that's different. Ella, so rather, let's say like this. Ad shelo neras hamizbeach, what happened is they sanctified their animal before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, when it was still fine. And then, now the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, and then they want to bring it back again. Now it is puzzle. So, now, Neros, 1 second. There were 70 years between the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, second Beis HaMikdash. Everybody's too old for this, right? The animal can't be brought. There's no such thing as an animal that would have been sanctified and then 70 years later is being brought as a korban. Ella, so rather it means like this. Ad shelo nifga mizbeach. We're not talking about by the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. We're talking about a circumstance where there was a mizbeach, the mizbeach got broken, and now ve'achar kach nifga mizbeach psulin, right? That the mizbeach means that they sanctified it, then it got broken, right? Now, so therefore, that's what's going on here, and so therefore, this price seems to prove that such an animal is puzzle. So the lo terutze kamatarzt, he says, 1 second, that's your proof. Your proof is that you've got a brisa that you doctored and changed all the text around in order to turn the case around so it made any sense, and that's your proof against my shita. Once you already have a brisa with suspect text. Right, Ema shenishchatu. You can change it a little bit more. Just say that they shechted it when the korban was when the mizbeach was no good. Then everybody agrees that the korban is puzzle, right? If it was shechted when it was no good, so therefore this brisa doesn't prove anything. Rav Gidol Amarav. Didn't Rav Gidol say in the name of Rav? Mizbeach shene'akar maktirin kitoris b'mekomo. Right. If you take out, let's say you have the mizbeach, the golden mizbeach on the inside, the mizbeach apnimi, and it's under renovations, you got to fix it. So if that mizbeach is missing, you could take the ketores and burn it in the heichal where the mizbeach would normally stand, and that's okay.
How did it go missing? Someone stole it, or
they had to repairs, right? They had to do repairs.
Well, we filled the question. We were talking about how to build Roman mizbeach.
Right.
I think
It's just a theoretical.
the korban tamid.
Yes, right. We didn't know exactly how to handle that, right? So, but still, don't have a great answer for what they did. They might have had to delay it for a day or something. I suppose if you had no choice, right?
Wait for another
So the answer to that is Kedamar. It's like Rava says, Moda Haya Rabbi Yehuda b'damim, hachinami Moda Rav b'damim. There's a difference that they agree that when you're talking about non-korbanos, right? You're talking about
That's what Rashi said.
that the blood needs to be done on the mizbeach, right? So therefore, right, that
straight over here. I mean, it's already a little bit more than 5%. Right? But it seems to be that according to Rashi,
right, that when it comes to the ketores, that you could do with no mizbeach. It's only korbanos of blood that you need a mizbeach for. So therefore, that's where you shachted. Then you can't, and you didn't bring the blood. Then that's where the korban gets puzzled. But everyone's not going to have a problem with the fact that you can bring ketores on the mizbeach if you have, even if you don't have a mizbeach outside. Okay, my Rabbi Yehuda. Where is this? What is Rabbi Yehuda holding? That he says that Rava says that he has to agree, that Rabbi Yehuda is going to agree with the blood, right? Tanya, we learn a brisa. B'yomahu kidesh hamelech toch hechatzer, that on the day that they put up that Shlomo inaugurated the Beis HaMikdash, right? The pasuk tells us that he sanctified in the chatzer, in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, ki mizbach, the copper nechosha, the copper altar that he had before Hashem. Koton mehachil. It was too small for it to be enough to be able to bring all the korbanos. So dvarim kichsavan, divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that was the issue. They had a mizbeach. The mizbeach was the one they had in the Mishkan, and the mizbeach in the Mishkan was much smaller. So therefore, the pasuk means that the Shlomo came along and he wanted to bring a lot of korbanos, and the mizbeach that they had from the Mishkan was too small. So therefore, they made a new mizbeach. Okay. Amalei Rabbi Yossi says, "V'alo kvar nemar." Rabbi Yochanan says, "What's the problem? Why is the mizbeach too small?" V'alo kvar nemar elef olos yal Shlomo mizbeachahu. That Shlomo HaMelech brought 1,000 olos, right, on this mizbeach. Then it says ve'ilu bebeis olamim. Now that's the one that they had that he made. He brought 1,000 olos on the mizbeach that was from the Mishkan. Okay, that he made earlier. So he brought 1,000 olos on the Mishkan one. So we know that you can somehow in a day, right? How many korbanos can you do maximum on the mizbeach from the Mishkan? 1,000, right? Shlomo HaMelech did 1,000. Now, ve'ilu bebeis olamim. The Beis Hamikdash one is who Omer vayizbach Shlomo es zevach hashlomim asher zevach Hashem bakar esrim ushnayim elef. He brought 22,000. Not only that, right? So then he brought another 122,000. So he had a whole total in the pasuk of 142,000 korbanos that he brought that day. So that's a lot of animals, right? Peter would have been very upset.
They take issue with that.
So he's bringing 142,000. Now, calculate. On the old Mizbeach, the old Mizbeach that Moshe Rabbeinu had these dimensions, right? It had a 1 amma fire here in the middle. That's 1 amma. Then it had a 1 amma space for the Kohanim to walk. And then it had this area for the Kronos over here in the corners, right? So therefore, the Mizbeach was, and then it had, right? So then it had, no, I take that back. Take this back. I'll just use their diagram. Here's the diagram, right?
In other parashas, we see that people, Noach and other people said Mizbeach to send korban to Hashem.
Yes. What size were their mizbechos?
Yeah.
I don't know, right? But at least like this. 1 amma in the middle, right? 1 amma on each side, which means 1, 2, 3 amos. So it was a walking distance of 3 amos from side to side. And then you have one more, amma on the side here. So you get 1 plus 3 plus 1, 5 amos. So the top of the mizbeach of Moshe was 5 amos by 5 amos. Okay? 5 amos by 5 amos is going to give you 1,000 korbanos. Okay? So now, this is 142 times the number of korbanos, right? 142,000. And your area is way larger. The new one is now 32 by 32, right? So therefore, if that is the case, so then your Mizbeach has plenty of space for 142,000 korbanos. Why is it the pasuk says that they brought so many korbanos that the Mizbeach was too small, was koton me'achil, right? So therefore, Mizbeach Shlomo says it was 40 times larger. So therefore, why is it they could 400 times larger? So therefore, why couldn't they do up to the total should have been up to 400,000 korbanos in a day? That was the capacity. So ela mahu koton me'achil. So what does it mean that the Mizbeach was too small, right? How does the Mizbeach too small? So the answer is, it wasn't Shlomo's Mizbeach that was too small. It was Moshe's Mizbeach was too small. The pasuk is telling us that since Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach was too small, he built a larger Mizbeach that could have a larger capacity for all the animals that he was going to bring. Ke'adam ha'omer lechavero, and it's like somebody says to his friend, "Nonashu pasal avoda," just as a person says when he means that somebody is a person's a midget, so therefore he is blemished in the sense he can't do the avoda. But you don't make fun of him and say you are a pasal avoda. You just say he's a midget, and then people understand.
You're a
dwarf. That's the way to say it, right? You're a dwarf, a little person, and therefore you cannot. Right, you cannot bring the avoda. You can't do the avoda. So therefore, right, you don't mention his psul. So therefore, the pasuk is saying kato me'achil. It doesn't want to say Moshe Rabbeinu's mizbeach was too small, was no good, because that would be a negative thing to say about the Mizbeach. Therefore, it just says he has this much larger Mizbeach. It was too small to hold everything. It was too small. So that's talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so now we'll pick this up. We're going to do a comparison of these two opinions of the size of the Mizbeach according to Rabbi Yehuda, and unless we want to go for another couple minutes. Right? We can see if we can turn a page.
We can.
Okay, let's go. Rabbi Yehuda, Shapir Kamar. This is Rabbi Yehuda saying a good answer, right? So he says,
We don't have it now. So keep going.
no, but if you have to go someplace else for marriage, right?
Okay. Right now. Here.
So therefore, what Rabbi Yehuda is giving a good answer to Rabbi Yossi. He says, one second. He says, you had plenty of space on the Mizbeach. How are you saying? How is it that what Rabbi Yehuda says? Shlomo HaMelech's Mizbeach. He's interpreting the pasuk as Shlomo HaMelech's Mizbeach was too small. Therefore, they had to do korbanos on the floor of the Mizbeach. That's the whole pasuk. Let's make sure we read the whole pasuk, right? That. Right, he had two. They had two. It was too small. So how could they be saying if Rabbi Yehuda is saying that the mizbeach is too small? Rabbi Yossi gave him a good answer. So the answer is Rabbi Yehuda l'tameh. Rabbi Yehuda is giving his own reasoning because he says, "Damar mizbeach she'asa Moshe gadol haya." Moshe Rabbeinu's mizbeach in the psukim was larger. It wasn't 5 amos by 5 amos. Right? So we're going to see, therefore, since Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach was much larger, we're going to see what he holds the size of Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach is. If Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach can only hold 1,000, Shlomo HaMelech was not much bigger, and therefore it shouldn't have been able to hold 142,000. Therefore, it was too small to keep to have capacity. Okay, now, Titania, here's their argument. Chamesh amos orech v'chamesh amos rochav. The pasuk says that the Mizbeach that was made in the desert was 5 amos by 5 amos. We have a Buch Chumash. We can find a picture of it in the back, maybe, right? It was 5 amos by 5 amos. Dvarim kichsavan divrei Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi says that's literal. The size of the Mizbeach, 5 amos by 5 amos. Rabbi Yehuda says Nemar kan ravua. It says by the Mizbeach in the Torah, it's squared. But Nemar laholan, and it says also by Yechezkel ravua, that in Yechezkel it also calls his Mizbeach Ravua. Now, in the Mizbeach in Yechezkel, which is talking about the third base of Mikdash, it says that it is Ravua. It says that the size of the Mizbeach. Second here. Let's see if we've got a picture of the Kalim. All right, we should, right? Here, right? This is going to be Rabbi Yossi's opinion, right? 5 by 5 on top. Right? It is a wooden box with copper plating. Okay? 5 amos by 5 amos. Okay? That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says no. When it says 5 amos by 5 amos, you are talking about Ravua, which means, just like Ravua in Yechezkel's psukim. In Yechezkel, he says that the Mizbeach is 12 by 12. But it says, Malaholan by Yechezkel, mi'emtza also hayamoed. In Hayamoded. He was measuring from the middle. So from here to here is 12, which means till the other side is another 12, which is 24. So when they talk about 12 by 12, they're talking about quadrants. So this, Yechezkel's Mizbeach in the third base of Mikdash, is going to be 24 by 24. That means that the Mizbeach that Moshe made was 10 by 10.
It's going to be hard for the
Who's saying
Kohanim.
Kamara? You saw it smart.
It's going to be hard for the Kohanim to carry them from place to place if it's so big.
One more.
That's true. But it was hollow. Okay. But it's 10 amos. But it's 10 amos by 10 amos, a 20-foot long.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So now, that's his point of view. 10 by 10. Now, if that's 10 by 10 and that only holds 1,000, you can see how the 30 by 30 is not going to be able to hold 142,000. Okay? V'hasam minol, and how do I know that in Yechezkel that you're also talking about measuring it from the middle? Dichsiv, the pasuk says, "V'ariel shtei mesrei orech b'shtei mesrei rochav ravua al arbas reva'av." It says the Ariel, which is the word that it uses there for the Mizbeach, was 12 amos by length and by width, and it was ravua squared al arbas raba'av in all directions. V'tanya went a brisa, shtem esrei orech b'shtem esrei rochav. It was 12 by length, 12 by width, l'kol ruach, to every direction. Oh, Eina Ela Shtem Esrei Al Shtem Esrei. Maybe the pasuk literally means literally. It's 12 amos length, 12 amos width. Keshomer El Arbas Riva'av, when it says towards all four of its corners, Melamed Sheme'emtza Humoded, it means that the pasuk is telling us that they were measuring it from the middle. Hence, you double the measurements. 12 in all directions means it's 24 by 24. It's the radius, not the diameter. So, same too by Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, Rabbi Yossi, Ki Gamar Gzeira Shava, Begovahu de Gomer. Rabbi Yossi says, you're right, there is this word Ravua, and it's written by Yechezkel, and it's also written by Moshe Rabbeinu. You know what that word Ravua tells me? It tells me that there's a similarity between Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach and the one in Yechezkel as well. But it's not talking about the width, it's talking about the height. And so therefore, D'Tanya in Brisa, the Shalosh Omos Komaso. The pasuk says in Shmos that they made the Mizbeach 3 amos tall. Dvarim kichsavan divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that's exactly what it was. So Rabbi Yehuda has this Mizbeach, right? His Mizbeach is 10 amos by 10 amos, right? And he's got a 3 amma height. That's his Mizbeach. 3 amos tall. Okay? So that's his Mizbeach. Rabbi Yossi says, no, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Nemar Khan Ravua, v'Nemar Lahalan Ravua. It says here and it says by Yechezkel Ravua. Malahalan Govho, Pishnaim Karko, just like in Yechezkel's, the height was double. Just like it's a Gzer Shava, not the Yechezkel, Gzer Shava to the Mizbeach that's inside the Beis Hamikdash. Just like in the Mizbeach in Beis Hamikdash is 1 amma by 1 amma with a height of 2 amos, so it's double the height as it was length and width. So Afkan Pishnaim Kerko. So too the Mizbeach, which is in the outside on the outside, is also double the height as it is the width. And that is the picture. Where did I find it again? Here, right? According to Rabbi Yossi, it's double the height as it is the width. Okay, so Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So we're going to ask in a moment. Where's the 3 amos that we're talking about? Right? It says the pasuk says 3 amos. The answer is it's 3 amos from here to here, from the top of this lattice work to the top of the mizbeach is 3. Okay, so that's going to be his answer, right? So that's going to be different. So he's going to disagree. Now, Amar le Rabbi Yehuda says to Rabbi Yossi, Efshar Kohen Omed al Gabe Mizbeach ve'avoda biyada v'chol amroen oso bibachutz. You're telling me the Mizbeach is 10 amos tall? That's pretty tall, especially considering how tall are the curtains. The curtains around the Azara are 5 amos tall. That means that everybody's standing outside and you can see the Kohen over the curtains. Everybody's watching him up there doing the avoda. That's not right? So this is the source for why there will be no jumbotron in the Beis Hamikdash, right? They're not going to be showing and seeing, right? It's not kavodik to what's going on the inside, right? They don't show off what the Kohen's doing up there. Otherwise, you have like the live cam. They're not going to have like the Beis Hamikdash live cam to be able to watch the Kohen, the Kohen Gadol doing the avodah. It would seem from here. So Amar lo Rabbi Yossi.
Watch party there.
That's right. Amar lo Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, "V'lo kvar nemar v'eskali achatzer v'smasach shara achatzer asher al mizbeach al mishkan al mizbeach." The pasuk says that the curtains of the courtyard and the curtains that are covering the opening of the mishkan al mizbeach connects the two of them. So, what is the connection between the curtains of the Mishkan and the curtains that were around the perimeter? Ma Mishkan Eser Amos, Af Mizbeach Eser Amos. So the answer is that just like the curtains were 10 amos, so too the Mizbeach is 10 amos. Now these curtains that we're discussing, again we have pictures here. Here, right? These are the curtains that we're discussing, right? So the curtains Right? Here they're not going to tell you how tall they are because we're about to have a conversation of exactly how tall these things were. Okay? So he says just like the Mishkan, which was the Mishkan, which is surrounding the Mishkan was 10 amos. So also these the curtains around them also had to be 10 amos. Ve'omer, then it says Klaim Chamesh Esrei, that the curtains were 15 amos al hakasef, on the shoulder. Now, Matamad Lomar. So then what does it say? What is it telling me? Are they 10 amos? Are they 15 amos? What's the height? So the answer is what? So how, and then how are you going to explain the third pasuk? The third pasuk says that they were the size of the chutzner was mea ba'ama v'rochev chamish, was 100 amos by 50 amos, and the height of the curtains was chamesh amos, was only 5 amos. So which is it? You got 3 different sources. You got one that says 10, one that says 15, one that says 5. So the answer is misfas hamizbeach. So the answer is that's misfas hamizbeach ulemala. That's going to be from the top of the mizbeach and up. Meaning the curtains themselves are 15 amos tall. The mizbeach is 10 amos, so you need curtains that are at least 10 amos in order to cover the mizbeach. That means if they're 15 amos, they're going to be 5 amos taller than the top of the mizbeach. Says Rabbi Yossi, that's why I don't worry about it. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, 5 amos is the height of the curtains. 15 amos is the measurement from the corner to the opening. From here to here on the width, not the height, is 15 amos on each side, right? Because remember, this is going to be 50 amos all along. So if this is 15, this is 15, that gives you an opening over here of 20 amos. So that's what we're talking about, different measurements. We're measuring different things. So therefore, now, Matama Lomar, Shalosh amos komaso. How is Rabbi Yossi going to explain the pasuk that says that the Mizbeach was 3 amos tall? That's misvas sovev ulamala. As we said, that's from the edge of that lattice work to the top is 3 amos. Now, for Rabbi Yehuda, ki gamar gzera shava berachavahu de gamar. So Rabbi Yehuda, he learns the gzera shava. He says the Ravua tells me that it's talking about length and width, right? Rabbi Yossi said that the gzera shava is talking about the height. Rabbi Yehuda, ha kamis chazi kohen. So he says, still, according to Rabbi Yossi, right? You've got a height of 3 amos tall. And you've got curtains that are only 5 amos tall. At the end of the day, you could see the Kohen, right? Wasn't that his whole problem? You could see the Kohen. The Kohen himself is 3 amos tall, right? So the curtain, he's going to be up above the curtain. The answer is, Nehi de Kohen mischazi, avoda de biyodo lo mischazi. You're right, you can see the Kohen, but you can't see the work on the Mizbeach, which is what he's doing. That's what you're worried about keeping private. So Bishlam Rabbi Yehuda Hainu Dichsiv. I understand according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's why it says in the pasuk Kidesh, right? The pasuk says that Shlomo HaMelech, he sanctified the floor because he wanted to. He sanctified the floor of the courtyard because he wanted to bring korbanos there because it was enough space. Rabbi Yossi says he didn't bring it on the floor. He brought in the big mizbeach because the thing that was too small was the mizbeach he didn't use. So my Kiddush, what is it that he sanctified? Lahamid ba mizbeach. He sanctified it in order to put a mizbeach there. Meaning that was what it means. Now, one more thing. Bishlam Rabbi Yossi, Haindichsiv Katan. I understand according to Rabbi Yossi, he explains why the Mizbeach was small, right? He says it's Katon. The Mizbeach HaNechoshes was too small. Rabbi Yehuda, my Katon. So what does Rabbi Yehuda say? That he's saying that the Mizbeach was too small, right? That why is it saying that? Hachikam, what does it mean? Mizbach avanim she'also shlomo tachas mizbach hanechoshes katan hava. The stone mizbeach, the new one that Shlomo HaMelech made, was still too small for all the korbanos that Shlomo HaMelech wanted to bring. Therefore, he brought many of the korbanos and burnt them on the floor because he sanctified the entire floor of the Azara to be used for burning korbanos. Okay, so that is, we'll stop here because otherwise we'll go.